guys. So one of the biggest misconceptions I had when I first started learning herbalism years ago was thinking that there had to be one perfect herb for every problem, right? If you said you had an upset stomach, somebody said, use this herb. If you had trouble sleeping, somebody said, use this herb. If you had anxiety, somebody gave you a totally different herb. So surely, with all those lovely recommendations, there has to be one perfect herb for those symptoms, right? And then you buy the herbal books. And then you start realizing one book says peppermint, another book says ginger, another one says chamomile, and then fennel comes in play. And then everybody's swearing by lemon balm, right? And I remember thinking, can somebody please, for the love of all that's holy, tell me what herb I need to take for my stomach ache? Have you ever felt that way, this deep in the herbal books? Because I have. And then something finally clicks, right? And you realize you're asking the wrong question. We keep asking, what's the best herb for my stomach ache? When years of experience will teach you to ask something completely different. So you will ask, tell me more about this stomach ache, right? And changing that perspective is going to change everything. So staying with the stomach ache, let's imagine two people come to you and both say, my stomach hurts. If you stop there, you're going to miss most of the story. So let's ask another question. First person says, my stomach always feels cold. I love heating pads. I'm always bloated after I eat. I always feel better after I drink something warm. And now your brain starts thinking, right? You have more than just my stomach hurts. So you're thinking, okay, we're looking at cold, slow, sluggish, possibly digestion. Maybe we're going to look at a warming herb like ginger for this stomach ache, right? Or maybe cardamom, or maybe even cinnamon, right? And those herbs have traditionally been used to warm and stimulate digestion. But then another person hears you talking about stomach aches, right? And they walk over and they're like, oh my gosh, my stomach hurts all the time too. And then they go, but I have acid reflux. I always am running hot. I don't even like hot drinks or teas. And now you're starting to think something different for this person, right? So now you're going to go, maybe we want to do marshmallow root because it's slippery, or slippery elm, because maybe the tissue is irritated because of the acid reflux, maybe chamomile, maybe meadowsweet. And you see them, they had the same complaint, but there's very different pictures and completely different herbs. And nothing changed. Fergus. Nothing changed except for the person. He's trying to get a kitty cat this morning. So two people both say, I'm anxious. The first person walks in looking exhausted. Cold hands, quiet voice, low energy, and looks like life has completely just drained them of everything they have left. Another person walks in talking a mile a minute. Face is flushed, they're sweaty, they're restless. They can't seem to just sit still. Both people used the exact words, right? I'm anxious, I have anxiety. But do they look like the same person? Are they presenting all the same symptoms? No, not at all. For the first person, many herbalists might begin to think about nourishing herbs, right? Like maybe milky oats are going to come into play, or oat straw, right? Because the person appears to be depleted. So we're looking at minerals. For the second person, you might think that herbs like lemon balm, passion flower, chamomile, because that presentation looks very different too. Again, the symptoms didn't choose the herb. The person helps narrow your choices down. So we're going to do another example with cough. Say someone comes in and says, I've got a cough. Okay, cool. Is it dry? Does your throat feel like sandpaper? Is anything coming up when you cough? So then the answers to those questions, you're going to start thinking about herbs rich in mucilage, possibly, like marshmallow root, slippery elm again. And those, so like if you've got the sore throat, like the other day, right? My throat was really worn out on camera, and I threw some of that marshmallow root into my tea, and that, because my tissues were inflamed, so the demulcents in that actually helped me, and the next day it was completely gone. But then the other person comes in and they're like, I'm coughing stuff all day, right? And I've got mucus, and I'm going to think about a completely different herb for that person, right? So maybe we're going to go to a nice mullein tea or an elecampane, or maybe even thyme, right? So same symptoms, right? They both had a cough, but you have a different picture and different herbs. So now we're going to think about sleep, right? Because we all seem to be running on minimal amounts of sleep. Someone comes in and says, oh, I can't sleep. Do you have a newborn at home? That may be your number one cause. No. But so the first person might say, my brain just will not shut up. I replay conversations all night. I worry about everything, right? So now you might think about herbs like lemon balm, chamomile, passion flower. Another person says, I fall asleep just fine, but I wake up every 2 hours. Again, do you have a newborn? No. I wake up every 2 hours and I'm completely exhausted, and I feel like I have nothing left to give. So that's going to change that conversation a little bit too. So now I'm thinking about nourishing herbs, right? Again, we're going back to the milky oats, oat straw. Complaints sound the same, right? I can't sleep. But once you start asking the deeper questions, they become two very different situations. And I think that's the key part, right? And honestly, I think this is where a lot of beginners, including myself back in the day, would get stuck. Because we all want charts. If you're a visual person like me, you want a chart. For headache, take this. For sleep, take this, right? For digestion issues, you're going to take this, right? For sleep, you're going to take this, right? But herbalism isn't about memorizing plants, okay? I have charts. Don't get me wrong. I have charts to help me step through some things. But true herbalism is really about observing people, right? So if you're a people watcher, that's the biggest lesson you're going to learn, right? Because every plant I study gives me a little bit more observation, not memorization, right? You can't memorize them all. There's a lot out there, guys. I mean, maybe after 15, 20 years, you're, shooting herbs like that. But so what are herbalists actually looking for when they're asking you these questions? So you don't feel so uncomfortable when somebody just starts asking you stuff, right? Do you feel hot? Do you feel cold? Are your tissues dry, right? Like dry throat. Are they wet? Like a lot of mucus. Does warmth make you feel better? I always run cold, so I'm going to lean towards more the warming herbs, right? Does cold things make you feel better? Are you tense? Are you completely worn out? When did this start? What makes it worse? Those answers actually help narrow down the choices of the herbs that you will select to help people cope through these things. Again, we're not curing. Depending on the herb, we're helping to adapt, right? And this is why I think also herbal books can be kind of confusing, right? 5 different herbs might all be listed for digestion, not because the authors of these books disagree, but because they often are describing 5 different people, right? So when that finally starts to click for you, herbalism is going to make a lot more sense. You've seen people give the same herb and have 2 different reactions, right? So if you're beginning your herbal journey, don't spend all your time trying to memorize hundreds of herbs. You're going to go crazy and you're going to need a lot of other herbs to help you, but start observing, start asking more questions, looking for patterns, right? Because I have a feeling this is how you're going to start to step into true herbalism, right? Not by memorizing plants, but by learning to understand the person standing in front of you or yourself, right? And I think that's one of the best parts of herbalism, right? It's not a one size fits all, right? Like I might do great with ashwagandha, but it might give you horrible nightmares. We don't know. Some people get nightmares from chocolate. Dark chocolate can induce those types of things. So we're not a one size fits all type of people, even with our diets. So to think that we'd be a one size fits all people for our herbs is very small-minded of us. So again, I'm just trying to teach you how to think like an herbalist. And if Jenny comes over to you and swears lemon balm's the cure, and then you try it, well, and it doesn't work, you're not going to feel defeated, right? Maybe she runs warm and you run cold, right? You just don't know because you're not asking those questions, right? I mean, really, how many of us walk up to our friends and are like, are you more hot-tempered or cold-tempered? Do you have a lot of mucus this week? I don't know. Maybe we should start asking our friends those things. I don't know. But I figured this would kind of be a good step point, and we're going to do a couple videos of why you would choose one herb over another. Again, there's not always a one size fits all, but it's like learning to think like an herbalist, right? So until next time, my friends, I want you to stay rooted, stay curious above all things, and always continue to grow in grace. I'll see you next time.